Debbie Carlson, you recently wrote an article for the Wall Street Journal on why investors might need to consider working with a financial advisor. What did your reporting uncover?
Well, I found that, first of all, it's never been easier to be a DIY investor. You've got budgeting apps, you've got financial calculators, investment apps, robo-advisors. So it's never been easier to be DIY. Yet, big life events happen, and that can change your financial picture. And it also may change so much that, technology may not help you. So there could be a time where it's worth it to seek advice. So big life events, marriage, birth of a kid, impending retirement, other things that kind of change both your personal and your financial life. So it's worth talking to a financial advisor because, your taxes could change, your goals can change. Another reason is kind of investor behavior. If you're the type of person who gets queasy with market moves, it's maybe it's time also to talk to a financial advisor. So those were some of the things that I initially found with my reporting, and through talking with several experts, kind of nailed down four things I think would help both newbies and seasoned investors. The first one that I learned was like, are you saving enough to reach your goals? Uh, that could be something that, you may think you are, you may think you're not, but, getting that second opinion could help. And a professional planner can look holistically at your contributions if you're just saving, through work, or if you have a brokerage and a work account. They can look at your asset allocation. They can look at your spending, map out a nice long-term strategy for you, and then calculate based on your spending, your asset allocation, your contributions, what sort of annualized return you may need over time. So you're going to take an appropriate amount of risk. And risk is, too much or too little. And if you have a workplace plan where you have stock, maybe you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about those as two different things. Well, a planner could look at this, your investments in company stock and your 401k and see, we need to, switch things up. Um, and then I also found too, then this is not necessarily in the story, but something I think also is to think about is some people grew up with this idea like, you've just got to save to save. And that becomes like the point of saving rather than the goal. So again, this kind of ties you back to this idea of having a goal for your savings. And then a second one is to tie back to the major life milestones. Retirement is like the biggie. And I think just relying on conventional wisdom of the 4% rule every year, that may just sound good, like looking at an app or reading about, but you have one shot to get retirement right. All this time you've been saving, it's not easy, but it's straightforward. You just save, your paycheck every 2 weeks, or if you have a little extra, you put it in a brokerage account. So if you make mistakes, during that time, um, you're not going to mess up. But in retirement, if you take too much out when the market falls, or you take too much and your tax bracket goes up, those are mistakes that you might not be able to recover from so quickly. So a financial advisor, especially if you're getting ready to retire, can really help retirees kind of, map out spending, Social Security claiming, if you have a pension, um, if you have passive income, all these things that can help you think about what's that going to mean in retirement versus in the lead up to retirement. And it could also help you feel comfortable, like how much can I withdraw in up and down markets? Which assets to tap? Like if you have a Roth, if you have a taxable brokerage, how do you do that? So a financial advisor can help. And maybe it's just a one-time meeting, but it could be something that you meet occasionally over your lifetime. I think also when we talk about retirement, it can help you strategize for when you have to take your required minimum distributions at 73. Charitable giving may fall into that. So that's another reason to possibly meet with a financial advisor. Uh, Now, for some people, especially like some Wall Street Journal readers, they're kind of savvy. They may be, feeling that they've done well managing their own investments. But as we know, investments are getting more complex. And so the question is, are you going to have time to really learn about all these complex investments? And if you do, great. If you've got that time to research, manage your portfolio, you may not need that financial advisor initially. However, again, complex investments get more complex, or maybe your life just gets hectic. You may want to start meeting with a financial advisor as like a trusted second person to help you, even if you want to stay fully engaged. And, let's also talk about, the not nice part of aging, which can be cognitive decline. If you don't have a spouse who's as engaged, having a financial advisor who you trust and you've already established a relationship with, you're going to be in trusted hands for you and your family. So, that's really something to think about too as you get older. And, finally, I think whether you're brand new or you're a seasoned investor, if you're going to go to a financial advisor, really know yourself and ask the question, will I be willing to make a change if a financial advisor suggests, hey, what you're doing here is taking on too much risk or you're not going to meet your goals? Are you going to be willing to listen to that advice? And, so before you even, set up the appointment, say on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it for me to accept advice and to meet these goals? One of the people I spoke to said on a scale of 1 to 10, if it's five or above, go ahead, make that appointment. But if it's anything less than that, save your money. So those are some of the things that I discovered in my reporting.
Debbie, these are all very interesting points and excellent things to consider for individual investors, near retirees, especially given that we're in an era of market uncertainty, political uncertainty, inflation. What will technology do to the employment landscape, especially if you're later in your career, right? So
Absolutely.
I think this is something that really everyone should check out. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.